Happy Wednesday, guys. I just wanted to try something different this week. Instead of just putting discussion questions on our Facebook Messenger and allowing you guys to just look them up and answer them, I decided to kind of do something maybe a little more interactive. We're kind of recap the sermon that we preached on Sunday about James and talk a little bit, and also get you guys to do some discussion maybe in your home or in a small group, or just throughout the week with your kids. You could sit down and watch this. The lesson this week was on temptation cycles have a course, and the fact that sin is progressive. And so as you think about that, James chapter 1, the verses we were in this week in verses 14 and 15 of James chapter 1 say this: you are tempted by the evil things you want, and your own desires lead you away and traps you. Your desire grows inside of you until it results in sin. Then sin grows bigger and bigger and finally ends in death. Now, depending on which translation you read this morning, you can stop and read that in a few different translations, James chapter 1, verses 14 and 15. But you can see that sin starts small and then progresses. That sin starts as, it says that it gives birth, that it's conceived, and that it starts as a baby, and then all of a sudden that this sin is full grown, and that its sin actually leads to death. So here's what I want you to do. There's going to be some discussion questions, some things you can talk about. So the question I want you to answer now as a group is to look at a sin maybe you thought of that wasn't really a big deal when you were a kid, but is a bigger deal now. So name a sin you didn't think was a big deal when you were a kid, and how that is full grown, and you can see how that sin is progressive, or you can see how that sin is a big deal. Like maybe when we were kids, and this is just one of them, this isn't to ostracize anybody by saying this, but maybe when you were a kid, like same-sex attraction was just called homosexuality, and it wasn't really a big deal at the time, or it was a big deal, but like you didn't see it progressing. You didn't see it becoming a bigger deal. And so as you talk in your group, you don't have to necessarily talk about that one, but think about some sins, maybe even MTV or some things that weren't a big deal, but now that TV has kind of went a different direction, they become accessible to our kids. So take some time, maybe hit pause, and then come back to the video. The next question that I want you to consider as a group is, when I say sins are progressive, does that affect what TV shows, what movies, what music that you let your kids listen to or watch? Or, on the other hand, what you watch or listen to? Take a minute as a group and kind of discuss that. Adam and Eve didn't know how true this statement is. Sin is progressive. Adam and Eve, like most parents, didn't want their own sin to affect their children. I don't think they believed when they ate of the fruit that it was going to affect their two sons the way it did. So before we get into that, I want you to take a second and just talk about your conviction of wanting to shelter or guard or protect your kids from making the same mistakes or sins that you made. Take a little bit of time as a group and discuss that. When my mom was a kid, I'll tell you this story because it kind of sounds funny to me, but my mom was told by my grandmother that kissing made babies. That kind of sounds ridiculous, right? But kissing leads to other things. We all know this. But it sounds crazy that they would tell people that, or teenagers that, to scare them away from progressing in maybe sexual sin. So it sounds kind of crazy. Here's what Satan said. Did God really say not to touch or look at or eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, or you will surely die? Why don't we take sin this seriously that we don't look at it, touch it, or eat things that are forbidden or that God has forbidden? Do we really believe all sin is progressive and that it ends in death? Take a second, kind of answer that as a group and chew on that. Cain killed Abel as a result of original sin. Now here's something I want you to imagine. Can you imagine Adam and Eve's grieving over their own original sin when Cain killed Abel, and the truth of eating the tree of good, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and God said, if you eat of it, you will surely die? Why don't we take sin that serious? Take a second as a group and think about just how serious sin was from its birth, and how serious it is that it actually produces death, and how Cain and Abel's sin, or actually Adam and Eve's sin, produced death almost not immediately, but as their kids became full grown, one of their sons took their other one's lives. So sin must be pretty serious. Take a minute to kind of discuss that as a group. Thanks for joining me this afternoon and joining in some discussion questions. Hope y'all gained something from it and you could chew on the lesson that we shared this week. And Kevin's going to be leading the next sermon and lesson this week coming up. And so we look forward to that and look forward to hear what James has to say and how he can speak into our life today and give us wisdom on how to live. Hope y'all have a good week.